Hi, this is Lisa Starr with Natural Time, a video podcast about Mayan astrology for a modern age. I haven't been here in a couple of weeks. I know that there are times in my life when I do not want to be seen on video. So I don't know if you go through that. I just continue to do audio podcasts, which you can always find. They are under Natural Time, and I use Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I podcast Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, essentially. So there's plenty of information out there. Here, I'm just being a talking head, in part because I want to make sure that people that aren't doing podcast listening can also track the Mayan astrology that I love so much. So we're going to talk today about the wave spell we're in, the 13-day original Mayan time period that is shaped like a wave. When you feel it, when you move through it, it's not like a timeline. It's something that kind of builds to a peak and then falls apart, and we move through time through that rhythm and gesture. And that's why I love it, because that is what nature does as well, right? Every part of nature that we really are wed to is moving through time circularly and cyclically, and there are peaks and valleys, and it's really beautiful to organize our lives around kind of a set perception. Like this is a peak and valley based on a really pretty esoteric, mystical path from the ancient Maya. This will allow me to experience time in harmonic rhythm. Doesn't mean we're always in a harmonious place at all, because plenty of the time that I'm following Mayan astrology, I'm actually enduring a certain amount of discomfort, which is almost always with the arrhythmic humanoid part of life, meaning bureaucracy and economic imbalance and social injustice, and just the way that it feels very chaotic because humans make decisions, or humans want a form of security or dominance. And so reverting back to other principles of nature as focal, meaning I'm curious to feel my way into the moon's path or the sun's arc through the sky over many, seasons of the year. I am drawn into tidal fluctuations and feeling my body as sort of a liquid reaction to the same tidal shifts that we see in the ocean, like all of those basic elemental pieces. And there are others. I think that's where I've been trying for a long time to extract myself from just everyday human activity and be more attuned to nature. And again, I don't mean just taking a walk, although I have 4 dogs and I take walks all the time. I mean, just having the first thought be like, what is the moon doing, and how much light will there be, and what is the weather in this day, and how am I thinking all of that in terms of how can I prepare myself or be present for the way grander life is fluctuating around me. Okay, so anyway, Mayan astrology time. It is the second to last day of the Blue Eagle wave spell. Today is called White Crystal World Bridger in the Tzolk'in calendar. The Mayan 260-day calendar is divided into 13-day wave spells. There's 260 days divided by 13 days means there's 20 sets of 13-day wave spells, and we are on the 19th of 20 right now. In 2 days, we start the final 13-day wave spell of the Mayan Tzolk'in 260-day calendar. So the last 2 are Blue Eagle and then Yellow Star. And Blue Eagle to me is just a picture of getting so high up in the sky, still in the animal kingdom or in the atmosphere here on Earth, right before we just keep flying, and we can just picture an eagle that flies so high that it turns into a star. And that's our journey as well right now. Blue Eagle has been the last 12 days. Today's the crystal day of the 12th day, and it's when we talk I think, openly and easily about what happened in the wave spell that we just went through. Crystal days mean to gather and to be cooperative and see like the universal shared experience around us instead of an individuated one. So the way it works in a storytelling like motif would be that each one of us at the beginning of a wave spell sets off on an individual journey that is like a hero's journey in the fairy tales when someone has to go questing. And then by the time it's the crystal day, the 12th day, that means the journey has ended and we've returned to where we started, or home. And we all of us who've been on individual journeys of growth or discovery or confrontation, you know, confronting hidden parts of ourself or in relationship to others, like we've done all this laborious, heroic work. And we gather at the round table like the knights of King Arthur's age and legend. We sit together and talk about what we saw, what we learned, and how we've changed. So this is a crystal day, and we could each of us imagine that we're doing that, even though I'm the only one talking. The way I like to teach and learn and understand Mayan astrology is that if you follow the rhythms, they, I was going to say infect, but maybe there's a better word, they spill over into your life. So on a crystal day, you don't need to gather or sit in a room with other people that follow the calendar. You can just notice that when you go out in the world, there's going to be a kind of reflective tone to how people talk. Like that's the kind of synchronicity that will start to occur. If I just like use this moment that I have on the microphone to talk about what the Blue Eagle wave spell was for me, I have all these personal layers which will happen to you as well. Some wave spells don't have anything particularly relevant to your own birth astrology or your family of origin or your family that you've created if you're a parent, because I always think that using astrology to understand our parents, siblings, grandparents, and then our own offspring and who they marry and our grandchildren, like that's what I do. I use it like a family tree overlay to understand what is like a shared astrology through generations, like who imitates other people that went before them. But I also use the wave spells and the days that come up to try to understand, you know, like people in my family or friends. I mean, in other words, people who are important to me, but not only understand, but also bear out karma. So you could pass through a wave spell that represents your mother and discover a lot of feelings come up that remind you of being with your mother and that you have to work through them even if you're not in proximity to her. Or it's your partner, and your partner is someone you absolutely have proximity to, and you learn a lot about their perspective or your relationship as you move through the wave spell or the day, one day at a time. So I have a lot of material that's Blue Eagle. The least important maybe to you, but really, really present for me, is that I have twin dogs who are Blue Eagle dogs. They were born on a Blue Eagle day. And so this wave spell is really meaningful to me because they're really sacred to me, and it was their time. So I got to witness what they went through in this time. And they did go through some things, coming home to themselves. And then I have a Blue Eagle mom, so that analogy that I used is relevant, and it is hard for me to go through. You know, I'm not a child, and my children are not children, they're adults, but I still find a poignancy or a potency to going through wave spells of my parents and sometimes my grandparents, that there's just still unearthed. You know, basically a lot of us have trauma histories through our family of origin, and I certainly do. So I have to like have some trauma memories bubble up, and that feels very much like living through PTSD. So my Blue Eagle wave spell included that. It was rough. So that's like a storytelling piece. Like I won't tell more of the story, but It's not like I'm reporting a happy, wonderful experience in the Blue Eagle wave spell at our so-called round table. I'm talking about the part of it that was really harrowing and challenging as well. Blue Eagle, I think I've not talked about it here because I didn't want to be seen during the Blue Eagle wave spell, but Blue Eagle is about being in your head, being in your frontal lobe, being in the part of your mind that is really insightful and intelligent and focused on detail and can see the big picture and is intellectual. It's not a time to be in our hearts so much or in our lower chakras, where our sensuality kind of like touches in our bodies, reach the earth and each other. So it's a disconnect, I think, from really strong physical wellness, the kind of wellness that means I am alive in my body and I know what my body is feeling. I think Blue Eagle can cut us off from knowing what our body feels like. We might intellectually attend to our body, like make sure I take all my vitamins, but thoughts about the body are different than like, what is my body feeling? And I feel, and it's not just feeling good or bad, but layers of sensuality. Blue Eagle kind of traps us in our heads, so it's not a time where we know. But now the Blue Eagle wave spell is passing and ending, and we're going to go from all this astounding wisdom, from seeing the big picture as an eagle can, to dropping back into our bodies, kind of landing back in the nest or on earth. And that's how we'll finish up this wave spell. Now, this just happens to be a part of the Tzolk'in, the ending part, where we do have a really smooth, I don't think Yellow Star, the next wave spell, is very embodied either. So I don't think this is an embodied time in the Tzolk'in, meaning it's not natural right now to feel like sensual and aware of our bodies and what they feel like. It's a time to be kind of out there, like first in our heads and then in the cosmos in a way. Yellow Star is an invitation to feel like a star itself, the star that the Maya revered is actually a planet, but nonetheless they loved Venus. And so as we start the Yellow Star wave spell, we're not going to drop into like another four-legged animal reflection. We're going to be light and radiance and out there. So I don't think Blue Eagle is going to then end and we're all going to feel like a white dog, as an example of one tribe, or even the yellow human tribe, or some of the other aspects that come up. Yellow warrior, or certainly not red serpent. I keep thinking about how Blue Eagle is sort of the denial of the sensuality in order to have brilliant capacity for seeing and cognating. And red serpent is so much about feeling with our bodies what is happening around us. So talking a lot about that, because no matter where we are in the Tzolk'in, reaching balance through kind of, if we're tilted too much in one direction, we need to balance it with something that's opposite. And the Tzolk'in tells us exactly what is opposite and balancing. So Blue Eagle is opposite and balancing with red serpent. So I think that's why I keep hammering on this idea of trying to find your way back in your body after this big time in flight. Yellow Star starts in a couple of days. We have tomorrow Blue Cosmic Hand, the Monday of our week, and then Tuesday we'll start the new Yellow Star wave spell. And what you can imagine is twofold. The emphasis for me on the Yellow Star wave spell is always about how we're finishing the Tzolk'in. We're finishing a 260-day cycle, which is the same as gestation in the womb. So we're really moving toward two metaphors. One is birth, like the end of a 260-day cycle in utero means being born, which is what the red dragon wave spell that follows Yellow Star. We have the red dragon wave spell, which represents being born right out of the great maternal womb. But the other part of yellow star that's so obvious is that it's like finishing touches, rising to the light. Becoming stars means leaving the planet. So it's, on the one hand, it's like moving towards birth, and the other, it's like moving towards death. And they're both totally enchanting. Like moving to become a star is not a loss in this particular path. I mean, first of all, it's a metaphor. No one is going to die, but the metaphor is just moving towards becoming a light being, which is what a lot of us aspire to, right? In our spiritual practices, is to be less densely earthen and feel divinity running through us. So yellow star is that moment where that's pretty much achieved. And yellow star is also like, refining a process that's gone on so long that we can incarnate, like being dipped in light right before we arrive on earth. If you think about how babies present when they are born, infants, they seem like they're still part of another worldly, heavenly realm. Like they have this beatific presence, the baby Buddha. And it's as if they haven't yet completely let go of where they come from, like this ether world between lifetimes that somehow seems suspended in a kind of deep, mystical harmony. Yeah. So if you're not really interested in it's the last wave spell, which is kind of my focus, thinking about cycles that are larger than 13 days, thinking of the whole 260-day cycle and when it began and what I have achieved or what I've learned or what I've been asked to grow through. I'll be kind of in my culmination reflection during the yellow star wave spell. But if you want to just feel it as an individual 13-day cycle without a lot of attention to how it is the final of the 20, then just again, yellow star has kind of a surface presentation and then something deeper. The surface presentation is that yellow star is about beauty, because the Maya were spellbound by this one pretty motile or moving constellation, center point in the sky. Like, because it's a planet, we now know that it would be perceived as moving a lot because it's got a orbit around the sun, right? It's not just still, so to speak. It's caught in the sun's gravitational field and it's spinning. So we see it moving visually because it has an orbit. The Maya may not have understood that it was a planet versus like a ball of fire. It's reflecting light. It is an originating light in terms of being like a star, like our sun is a star, is a fireball. So in any case, all of that to say, it's still really beautiful. And I think people feel that way about Venus anyhow, that it's just one of the really soothing, harmonious points of light in the night sky. So that's what yellow star can be, just like about beauty and the shine that really inspires and makes life feel powerfully worth living, because beauty is so inspiring. And it's not just stars that we would be enamored of in the yellow star wave spell, but just all the things that are beautiful. You'd see beauty in people, you'd see beauty in your nature experiences, you'd see beauty in places that you aren't attracted to noticing it at other times, and that you would be called to forms of art, or being an audience to something artistic, or creating art yourself, like you want to create beauty. On the other hand, briefly, the original, that's like the secondary layer that came. Jose Arguelles, the guy who kind of translated ancient Mayan for this particular lineage that I come from, he offered, I think, a pretty surface version of what the Maya were also trying to achieve. They were thinking of Venus as so inspiring, such a prominent and complex and perplexing fixture in the sky, that they used it as an inspiration to go to war. And if yellow star was the focus of the calendar, they could launch a war in that time, like maybe small scale, right? But it'd be a good time to be victorious and ominous in war, that you could be like a star and intimidate your enemy with your grand vitality and ferocity, and just really be, again, intimidating. So Yellow Star has some of that. It has beauty, which feels to me very peaceful and passive. And just look at that flower, that lotus blossom, that, beautiful dragonfly. So iridescent wings. Like, that is real in Yellow Star, but so is I will not be small. I am going to be strong, and I am going to be in charge. So radiance and star power, maybe even over others. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm giving you that preview because that's what I do, right? I'm an astrologer. I'm giving you a bit of a forecast, but I think it's more interesting to just report on what's happening as we experience it, and that's what I continue to do during the week on my show, Natural Time. And I'm not really into marketing or branding anything I do, but I do want you to know I do readings. You could get a personal reading from me, an astrology reading, and my website is resonanttruth.com, and it would be well worth it. You would learn about your own astrology in a way that's unforgettable, and I have all of this accumulated knowledge that I can share with you, and I can do it really fast. Sometimes when I think about my podcasts, like today, I don't think I paused ever, so I can do that in a reading for you. Meanwhile, I'm Lisa Starr. I am another yourself, and in Mayan we say, in Lakesh.